Courtesy of the wildfires, the sheer incompetence of the ruling politicians of California has been exposed to the world. Natural disasters will of course happen, that is not a political issue, but how disasters are managed very much so is. And this is where California and LA politicians have failed in a manner rarely seen in the Western world. Or this side of Chernobyl, where it was a series of poor decisions that aligned and together led to disaster. Such is the case here as well, and more former true believers are coming to terms with that, in the worst way possible. However, rather than admit that their beloved party could have done anything wrong, some of the most partisan voices in Hollywood, like Jon Stewart, has come out to deflect and attack anyone critical of the dear leaders of the party, while others have promoted more of the very activism which in no small part contributed to the disaster reaching the scale that it indeed has. Let's dive in. This video is sponsored by Black Forest Supplements. For many years now, California, LA, and its wokest hub, Hollywood, has disseminated wokeness, DEI policies, and other activist causes upon the world. And many now feel that it is implementing these very policies locally, which has contributed to the full scale of the disaster.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
And just so we are clear about that, this woman was not hired in addition to someone capable of rescuing someone out of a burning building. No, someone capable of doing that was not hired so that she could be given the job instead. Because that is how DEI works in practice. Though as we shall see here, the true believers are in complete denial about that. It should come as no surprise though, as we've all seen the entertainment repercussions of these policies on our screens, pushing mediocrity and girl bossness, all while most high-profile male characters have been reduced to passive, emasculated slobs that embody unhealthy lifestyles, in the process tacitly encouraging everyone to let themselves go, as some activists regard keeping mentally and physically fit as deeply problematic. Someone who doesn't listen to that though is Joe Rogan, who is healthy and extremely fit for the tender age of 57. One of the natural supplements he takes to boost his health is NMN, and rather than me explaining it, let's hear it from Professor David Sinclair from the Paul F. Glenn Center for the Biology of Aging at Harvard Medical School, the man who introduced it to Rogan.
So I take NMN every morning.
What is NMN?
Good question. So let me take a quick step back.
Sure.
So about 20 years ago, Lenny Guarente and a team of us at MIT discovered a set of genes that controls aging in yeast cells, just brewer's yeast, what you find in beer and bread. And those genes are called sirtuins, and there are 7 of them in our bodies, 5 in yeast. And what they do is they protect all organisms on the planet, plants, bacteria, humans, from deterioration and disease. They're like the Pentagon. They sense when we're hungry, sense when we're exercising, and they send out the troops to defend us. So when you put more of these genes into a yeast cell or a mouse, they'll live longer, between 5 to 20% longer. And so we think that these genes are responsible for the effects of dieting and exercise, which is great. What that means is we can now mimic that with molecules. So NMN is one of those molecules.
So with NMN, you get improved energy, weight management, endurance, strength, and anti-aging. There are plenty testimonials from people who have discovered it out there. They feel better, they feel stronger, they have more energy. And one of the things, as a guy, especially, well, you know how it is, you need to be strong, you need to be mentally aware, you need to be healthy, and you need to take care of yourself, because no one else is going to. So go check out Black Forest Supplements, NMN. Click the link in the description or pinned comment, or use the QR code on screen to order. And for the next 48 hours, viewers of this channel can buy 2 and get 1 for free, so order yours now. Link is in the description. With that, let's get back to the denial about how policies associated with the Democrat Party have contributed towards making the disaster as bad as it is. There are viral video clips of both Joe Rogan and Donald Trump, both individually and in their conversation together, breaking down just how predictable the current situation was, and which measures could have been implemented to not stop, but mitigate the scale of the disaster. Some of these clips date back to 2018, and they make the politicians of California look very, very bad, because it serves to illustrate just how predictable and how avoidable the scale of this was. Still, some partisan voices have tried to defend the indefensible, and even accuse those critical of Mayor Bass of being racist, something progressive leftist and the Young Turks host Cenk Uygur had issues with.
I see a lot of people on our side defending Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom just because they're Democrats or they're on the left, or because Donald Trump told a wild lie about the fires, or because Karen Bass is a black woman. Now that's a new theory that she wouldn't have been criticized otherwise. This is the largest fire in LA history. Trust me, she could have been Martian. She'd be criticized. And do not make the mistake of thinking because Republicans did X or Y that we should let people on our own side slide, because them sliding year after year, decade after decade in blue states and blue cities is what has caused their complete arrogance.
Well, Jon Stewart decided that letting it slide is exactly what he was going to do, and instead go on the attack. The Hollywood Reporter did a breakdown of Jon Stewart's most recent special in their article. Jon Stewart rips LA wildfires response critics. What the F is wrong with you? Yeah, how dare you criticize? I saw this full segment actually, and rarely have I seen Jon Stewart as deceptive as here. But let's stick with the main points that the Hollywood Reporter gleefully decided to further disseminate, because they are of course in complete agreement, and also of the mind to let the mistakes of the California politicians slide. They write, Stewart particularly took aim at congressional Republicans seeking to attach wildfire aid to a federal debt limit increase and saying Democratic leaders in California need to agree to make changes to their policies first. Referencing the quote, I expect there will be strings attached to money that's ultimately approved. There can't be a blank check on this, said Wyoming Senator John Barrasso among a series of clips. That series of clips, in their full context, were entirely clear that any strings attached were all about preventing this from happening again, because it was all about the predictable nature of this disaster, as indeed Cenk Uygur also pointed out.
The number one thing I want you to keep an eye out for is I think their pathetic excuse for, no one could have seen this coming. I mean, it's just wind, that's all. I mean, are you kidding me? There's wildfires in LA all the time. And you know generally what season they're gonna come in. You know they're going to be devastating. You know that your own donors are causing it half the time. So you couldn't know it any better. You've been in trouble for it before. And you come into LA or California and you don't prepare adequately for this. And then afterwards you're a deer in the headlights and you're like, and you don't know how to answer any questions and you don't show any leadership. No, guys, don't make excuses for people on our side.
In other words, attaching the strings that LA politicians actually make the minimum preparations to prevent this from happening again, at the very least to this scale, same as literally everyone else in every other state, does seem to me the better choice than just paying out and letting everything carry on as before. Jon Stewart did not see it that way though. The problem now is Republicans appear to want to attach their I told you so's as a condition of funding California's disaster relief, Stewart said. What the fuck is wrong with you? Really, Senator from Alabama, the state near the bottom in math, reading and test scores. Next time you get hit by a hurricane, why don't we have a little parent-teacher conference to say that if you got your scores up, you would get the money? Or actually, let's not do that, because you'll get the money anyway, because we're not psychos. That is psychotic. That is Jon Stewart being deceptive right there, comparing school test scores with state politicians prepping for entirely predictable disasters in the context of disaster aid. Not only is it deceptive, it is also reaching. And the reason he is reaching is because no other states have failed as badly to prep for the natural disaster that they're prone to as has California. Stewart's reaching continued though, and extended to strawman arguments. I don't know what kind of a system you can develop that completely mitigates the risk of fire, plus drought conditions, plus 60 to 80 mile/hour winds, plus delicious wood. But here's the thing, no one ever requested any kind of system that completely mitigates the risk of fire and all the other perfect storm conditions, any more than anyone asked for a system that completely mitigates the risk of hurricanes. No, what everyone is calling for, including, I would hope, the majority of California residents, are policies that mitigate the scale of the disaster when disaster inevitably strikes. Such as cleaning up the brush before it becomes kindle, ensuring the water reservoirs are filled up, actually making the new reservoirs that were ordered a decade ago, and having a bureaucracy that allows the existing ones to be repaired when repairs are needed, something which annoyed Anna Kasparian.
And the reason why that reservoir was empty is because of the fact that it needed repairs to a floating cover so debris doesn't get into the water. And it's been empty for nearly a year. Why has it been empty for a year? Well, because constructing anything, building anything in this state, thanks to the environmental activists, or I should say, thanks to the individuals in this state who use environmentalism as this shield in order to pass regulations to make it incredibly difficult to build anything, including housing, right? They've succeeded at that. So to build anything, whether it's a reservoir, whether it's a repair to a reservoir, whether it's building a house, whether it's building anything, becomes incredibly expensive, becomes incredibly difficult to do, takes years on end. The last reservoir that was built in the state of California was built in the year, it was completed in the year 2000. Groundbreaking on that reservoir began in 1995. Explain to me how the fifth largest economy globally, the state of California, has that much difficulty building a reservoir.
Jon Stewart did not try to explain that. He was instead busy running cover for the glorious party, attacking the critics by saying, these people don't actually care. They're not actually trying to find a solution. They're just trying to work their pet issues into this tragic situation. No, to me, attaching strings does sound like trying to find a solution to prevent the scale of this from happening again. It also sounds to me that there are plenty solutions to be found. Stewart just doesn't want those solutions pointed out, because they'd make his party look bad. And that really is what is happening here. What Jon Stewart is doing here is accusing the critics of politicizing a natural disaster, when in reality, he is the one doing just that, by shielding the politicians and policies which directly have led to the scale of the disaster being greater than it otherwise would have been. That's the distinction here. No one is saying this was entirely preventable, but without the policies pushed in the state of California, the disaster wouldn't have reached the scale that it now is. Values for untold billions have been lost, countless have been left homeless, and given the bureaucracy and red tape requirements to rebuild, good luck with that, let alone with getting any kind of money to pay for new accommodation. Because that is the true tragedy here, not politicians like Bass and Newsom that just got exposed and humiliated in front of the world, but the average schmoes who just lost everything. And make no mistake about it, for every celebrity who just lost their home, so did 1,000 regular people. If only the likes of Jon Stewart and The Hollywood Reporter would have thought about helping them, rather than their preferred party. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. And before you go, remember to get NMN to help you stay fit and strong. Use the link in the description or pinned comment or even QR code on screen. And then for the next 48 hours, you can buy 2 and get 1 for free.